This is Alex Berger from Berger Law in Marquette, Michigan. And today I'm going to share with you one or two interesting things that I learned from a forensic toxicology training I had down in Chicago last week. So I spent Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Axion Labs in the West Loop of Chicago. And that class specifically was focused on forensic toxicology and testing for drug quantities in human blood. So it was two parts. We learned about how the drugs interact with the central nervous system, and then we learned how we detect drugs in blood, the gold standard for how we figure out what's affecting you in United States crime laboratories. So the training was complex. We covered a lot, but I wanted to pick one issue about laboratory testing in Michigan for marijuana that was pretty interesting and totally new to me. Nice thing about Michigan is we have standard operating procedures for all laboratory techniques. This is the standard operating procedure for cannabinoid conformation in blood. That means that it's the test that actually confirms that the drug is there and tries to give a quantity in nanograms per milliliter of how much is actually in the blood. So what this standard operating procedure says is that there are four cannabinoid compounds that we test for in blood when we're doing a cannabis test. There's the delta 9 THC, that's the one that gets you high. Delta 8 THC, which is it's naturally occurring in plants a little bit, but not very much. It's mostly synthesized. You've heard about delta 8. It's supposedly legal some places. That delta 9 is not. But they test for it in Michigan. We don't see a whole lot of it. And then the last two on this list are two metabolites. That's what THC delta 9 breaks down into after it goes through your liver and kidneys. And the first one is delta 9 THC COOH. We call that delta 9 THC carboxy. And then there's delta 9 THC OH, which is delta 9 hydroxy. Delta 9 carboxy does not have any effect on your central nervous system, but delta 9 THC hydroxy is psychoactive, meaning it can get you a little high in its own right. So we test for all these, and then, there's this problem in any sort of quantitative laboratory testing that when you take a sample, what do you compare it to, right? Like, I have a pirate ship in the back, right? I might be able to take a picture where it has like fake water or in real water, and I make it look like it's a real pirate ship, and I trick with perspective for that pirate ship to look like it's sailing on the sea, and it is gigantic, 50, 100 feet tall. But then if I put a quarter in that picture, it shows its actual size because that quarter acts as a comparison. It's how we determine what one size is we give a known size into that. Now for blood, urine, breath testing, this is called an internal standard. For any sort of quantitative testing, you need a standard that you can measure it against, like the quarter in the pirate ship. So for blood testing, it's kind of difficult how we find this standard. But what I learned is that for THC and for a lot of other drugs, they actually add that drug into the sample, but they do some complicated chemistry. So if you look at this thing up here, there's delta 9 THC D3 at the top for the analyte. And then there's delta 8 THC D3 for the analyte. And if you look right above that, those internal standards. Now, you might notice those are the exact same chemicals that we're testing for, but with the addition of D3 at the end. And what that D3 means is that, so hydrogen comes in different isotopes. It might have more neutrons added to it. D3D is what we called heavy hydrogen, or deuterium is what it's called. So what the D stands for is deuterium. So what they can do is they can bombard hydrogen molecules with neutrons, and then the neutrons attach to the hydrogen molecules and they become deuterium. So that's called deuterated. And so what they've done is they've deuterated these THC molecules. And so there's a way that supposedly they can detect whether or not a molecule was deuterated or whether or not it was normal. And that's how they differentiate. So they have a known amount of the deuterated THC, and then they compare it to the THC that's in the blood. Very complicated stuff. We did learn about the science behind it, but I'm not going to bore you how they detect it. But here's the problem, is that heavy hydrogen, deuterium, exists in nature. There are THC molecules that might already be deuterated, and we'd have no idea, no way of knowing that. And the issue here is that the lab techs really don't understand any of this. But here's the takeaway. When you're measuring a blood sample in the state of Michigan, pursuant to their own protocols, you actually add more of the drug into it. More of the drug that would have been psychoactive if it was in your blood. So that's how we measure it, is we add more of that drug into it, and then we hope that there was no drugs originally in it that are like the one we're adding. There could have been heavy hydrogen THC molecules in there. We have no idea how much. They have no standards where they measure for that. So, based on the protocol itself, there is a huge margin for error based on us not knowing the chemistry of what we're testing for in the blood. So I know that was pretty complicated and a lot. I look forward to trying to break down some of these more scientific things. If you have any questions, please post them. Thanks.